Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in Medelis when love arises, fierce, pure, and utterly unreachable. Not because it is untrue, but because it belongs to a realm that life, with all its conditions and compromises, cannot sustain. And when this kind of love enters your life, leaving as mysteriously as it arrived, it does not pass without leaving something behind. It marks you, it awakens you. To have loved someone deeply whom you could never hold in the physical world is not a tragedy. It is a rare initiation. A sign of a deeper, more complex personality, one not easily satisfied by the surface, one shaped by a rich inner life. There is a kind of person for whom the internal world is not a mere backdrop to reality, but a dimension just as vivid, rich, and alive as the physical one. For these individuals, emotions are not fleeting moments but entire landscapes to traverse. Thoughts are not just tools for problem solving but doorways to deeper understanding. When such a person falls in love, particularly with someone they cannot be with, it is not simply an experience of heartbreak or loss, it is a full immersion into a psychological and spiritual reality that reshapes their entire inner terrain. Love in this sense is not confined to shared time or mutual declarations. It is a movement of the soul, an eruption of meaning that cannot be reduced to circumstance or timing. The experience of loving someone who remains out of reach becomes not just a romantic encounter, but a symbolic event. One that activates archetypes, stirs dormant energies, and unveils aspects of the self that may have been long forgotten or not yet known. The rarity of such an experience lies in the many people live primarily in the external world. Their desires are shaped by what can be seen, touched, achieved, or owned. Their loves are based on compatibility, proximity. But for the individual who feels deeply and processes experience on multiple levels at once, emotionally, imaginatively, philosophically, the love that cannot materialize in the physical realm does not simply fade away. It deepens, it roots itself in the psyche. It becomes a living presence within. That kind of love becomes a container for growth, for exploration, and even for healing. It is as if the unconscious mind seizes this figure, the unreachable beloved, and begins weaving round them the threads of myth, memory, fantasy, and longing, not as a form of escapism, but as a way of integrating previously unconscious content into conscious awareness. The person you could not have becomes a symbol, not only of what was missing in your life, but also of what was latent within you. They become the image through which the soul begins to speak. This is not delusion. It is not obsession. It is the psyche doing what it was built to seek wholeness, to express meaning, to create coherence in the face of paradox and loss. When the outer world offers no resolution, the inner world continues the story, not to deceive you but to complete something within you. That is why those with rare personalities often find meaning even in unrequited or impossible love. They are not content to label the experience as a mistake or a misstep. They sense, intuitively, that such love has changed them, that it has drawn something out of them they did not know was there. Their imagination, far from being a distraction, becomes the crucible in which the deeper truths are revealed. This inner life is not a retreat from reality, it is an expansion of it. While others may try to move on quickly, suppress the pain, or frame the situation in terms of winning or losing, the rare personality welcomes the complexity. They sit with it. They let it unfold. They allow themselves to feel everything. The ache, the longing, the joy that once was, and the sorrow of its absence. Because they know, even without fully understanding how, that this experience is shaping them into something more real, more whole, more themselves. In this way, loving someone you couldn't be with becomes a kind of spiritual education. It teaches patience, humility, reverence. It pulls you away from the shallow pursuit of possession and into the deeper mystery of presence. And through that, something inside begins to shift. When we fall for someone we cannot be with, it often feels irrational, overwhelming, and inexplicably personal. And yet, beneath that surface confusion lies a deeper psychological process at work, one that goes far beyond attraction or coincidence. The psyche does not select objects of love at random. The person you love but cannot have is often not merely someone who caught your attention, but someone who mirrors a profound aspect of yourself that you have not yet fully claimed. This is the nature of projection, a powerful function of the unconscious, through which we see in others what lies dormant, denied, or unseen within ourselves. The one you long for becomes the canvas upon which your innermost patterns, desires, and ideals are painted, not as fiction but as revelation. You are not simply loving them. You are seeing something in them that resonates with the deepest structure of your own inner life. In this way, the love becomes a mirror. One that reflects not only the beauty of other person but the undiscovered aspects of your own psyche. You may see in them a boldness that you feel you lack, a creativity that you've buried, a sense of spiritual presence that you've only begun to sense in yourself. The connection feels magnetic, faded, and emotionally vast because it is activating something more than romantic longing. It is stirring the archetypal forces within you, the timeless energies that exist beyond the personal and the specific. In loving this person, you are inadvertently coming face to face with your own capacity to expand, to awaken, to see the soul in action. The intensity of the feelings, the depth of the pain, the inability to move on easily. All of it points to something meaningful happening beneath the surface of ordinary understanding. The more unconscious content is stored within us, the more powerful the projection becomes. And for individuals with deep, rare personalities, those who spend much of their lives in reflection, in meaning-making, in psychological or spiritual seeking, these projections are not simple or superficial. They carry the weight of years, of inner work, of unmet longings that have layered themselves quietly over time. When such a person encounters someone who embodies even fragments of these qualities, the experience can feel like destiny. But the truth is, this other person is not the destination. They are the messenger, they are the reflection, not the source. And recognizing this requires a level of emotional maturity that few people possess. Because it means turning the gaze inward and asking what part of yourself you have projected outward in the shape of this unreachable love. This is where the work begins. Instead of chasing or mourning the relationship that could never be, the rare soul begins to trace the feelings back to their origin. What have I not expressed in myself? What qualities do I admire in them that I have not yet embodied? Why does this feel so deeply familiar, as if I've known them long before I met them? These are not ordinary questions. They are doorways to self-revelation. They invite the individual to reclaim the very energies they projected outward. To internalize the strength, the beauty, the intelligence they saw in the other, and to integrate it back into their own evolving personality. This is why unfulfilled love can be a catalyst for deep personal growth. It confronts you with your own soul in disguise. It compels you to see not only who they are, but who you are in relation to them. And in doing so, it opens a path not toward possession or resolution in the external world, but toward wholeness within your own being. What felt like heartbreak becomes a summons to grow. What seemed like loss becomes a guide toward inner richness. And what looked like an ending was never really about the other person at all, but about you seeing yourself clearly. Perhaps for the very first time, to love without possession is a rare and often misunderstood form of strength. In a world that teaches us to chase what we want, to secure what we love, and to equate closeness with control, the idea of loving someone deeply while accepting their distance or absence seems almost counter to our instincts. And yet, for those with uncommon depth of character and sensitivity, this kind of love is not only possible but natural. It does not stem from passivity or fear, rather, it arises from a profound understanding that love, at its highest expression, is not about owning or claiming but about witnessing, appreciating, and honoring. There are those who, even in the absence of reciprocation or permanence, are capable of holding space for another within the sacred inner architecture of the heart. Not because they are naive, but because they know that some experiences are meant to shape us, not stay with us physically. They understand that the essence of love is not containment but reverence. When a rare personality loves, it is not a surface-level attachment to the other person's presence, role, or function. It is not contingent on daily communication or labels or social validation. Instead, it is a recognition of the soul, a meeting of energies, a silent affirmation that something real and unspoken exists between two beings, regardless of whether it ever manifests in the outer world. This kind of love is deeply internal, fiercely loyal, and often invisible to others. It does not demand, it does not try to bend reality to its will. It simply exists quietly and faithfully, without needing to be seen. This is what separates it from ordinary infatuation or desire. It is not born from lack but from presence, not from fantasy, but from deep emotional attunement. It is not possessive because it knows that what is real does not need to be captured in order to be felt. This kind of love reveals an inner richness that cannot be taught, only lived. It shows that the individual has cultivated a relationship with life that is not dependent on outcomes. They are not trying to manipulate events to match their expectations. They are allowing themselves to be transformed by the experience of feeling so much, holding so much, without demanding that life rearrange itself to satisfy their wants. This ability is not weakness. It is immense emotional discipline. It requires the capacity to sit in longing without collapsing, to remain open-hearted without being consumed, to feel the ache of absence while still seeing beauty in the presence of the memory. This is not romantic idealism. It is the quiet resilience of someone who has stopped resisting the truth of things, and has instead chosen to live inside the reality of love itself. Even when it cannot be fulfilled in traditional ways. Loving without possession means giving someone the freedom to be exactly who and where they are, without punishment or pressure. It means respecting the boundaries that life places around the connection, and still holding the other in a place of honor within you. It means valuing their soul more than your own need to have them. That kind of love cannot be practiced by everyone. It is a capacity born from solitude, from self-awareness, from the kind of introspection that reshapes the entire way one relates to the world. It is a kind of loving that does not fracture when tested by silence, nor fade when left unacknowledged. It continues not out of stubbornness but because it has become part of the inner structure of the person who feels it. In this way, to love someone you cannot be with, and to still hold that love gently and truthfully within you, is not a sign of foolishness or failure, but of spiritual maturity, emotional depth that few truly understand or are able to carry. There is a silent transformation that takes place in the aftermath of loving someone you cannot be with. A transformation that doesn't announce itself through visible milestones, but unfolds quietly within the depths of your being. This kind of love, unresolved, unclaimed, unspoken, acts like a seed planted deep in the psyche, invisible on the surface but constantly affecting the shape and rhythm of your inner world. While many people try to move past such love quickly, eager to restore balance, to forget, or to numb the ache, there are some who allow the experience to work on them, to teach them, to reshape them. For these rare individuals, love that doesn't find a home in the outer world often becomes the catalyst for inner alchemy. It stirs the unconscious, unsettles old identities, softens defenses, and carves out new chambers in the heart where compassion, wisdom, and strength begin to grow. The pain of unfulfilled love, when not resisted or rejected, becomes a kind of fire. A refining fire that burns away illusions and attachments, not to destroy the self but to reveal its essence. It forces you to confront what you thought love was supposed to give you, and what it actually gave instead. You come to see that the love itself wasn't a mistake, that it wasn't wasted simply because it didn't lead to a traditional relationship or a shared life. Instead, you recognize that the experience has expanded you, that it has introduced you to aspects of yourself you didn't know existed. Perhaps it awakened tenderness you had long suppressed, or opened creative channels you had neglected. Perhaps it humbled you, taught you patience, or shattered the armor you built around your heart. Whatever form it took, the love that couldn't be lived outwardly still managed to shape you inwardly. This is the quiet miracle of inner transformation. You begin to understand that real change rarely happens through ease or fulfillment, but through the tension between what is deeply felt and what remains out of reach. In that tension something is forged, something enduring. You are not the same person you were before the love appeared. And while others may only see what was lost, you begin to see what was found. The emotional depth, the honesty, the vulnerability that this kind of love requires, it all becomes part of your inner structure. It sharpens your perception of beauty, it deepens your empathy, it allows you to sit with paradox without needing to resolve it. In short, it prepares you to carry more of the human experience with grace. This kind of growth does not announce itself with celebration or reward. It rarely brings closure in the way we imagine. But it grants you something far more valuable, a sense of inner stability, a stronger connection to your authentic self, and a new understanding of what it means to love not for gain but for the sake of love itself. The alchemy of the soul requires time, silence, and a willingness to feel deeply without demanding resolution. It is not a path for the faint of heart, but for those who are willing to suffer consciously, to bear the weight of longing with dignity, and to let the experience alter them from the inside out. Through this process, what once felt like emptiness begins to feel like spaciousness. What once felt like sorrow begins to feel like clarity, and what once felt like loss begins to reveal itself as initiation. The love that could not be lived in the world begins to live within you, not as regret, but as presence. It becomes part of the way you see, the way you speak, the way you hold space for others. And in that way, the love that seemed impossible has already done something extraordinary. It has changed you without needing to stay, without needing to be returned, without needing to be named. So if you have loved someone you cannot be with, take heart. This is not a failure, it is not proof of unworthiness, it is, in fact, a sign that you are attuned to the deeper patterns of the psyche. A person who walks not only through life, but also through the vast terrain of the soul. And if the world sees your longing as impractical or foolish, let it. For what they do not understand is this: some love stories are not meant to be lived, they are meant to be felt, to be carried like sacred fire. Not to warm another, but to illuminate yourself. Thank you.